Welcome to another episode of the podcast that's fine with me. Today we're going to be talking about such people as Blake Lively, Ryan Randalls, James Corden, J-Lo, Ellen DeGeneres, and Meghan Markle. I guess you've noticed that this name pick wasn't random, and the main reason why is because those people were under a microscope for, I guess, a year or so, and James Corden is back to Great Britain, if I'm mistaken, but I'm not really sure. That is the main reason why I just want to talk how hard it is for celebrities to keep their image and why did they actually become one of least desirable people in Hollywood, or not even Hollywood but around the world, because you know that back in the day they were massive, especially Blake Lively and Ryan Randalls. They were in every single party that was meaningful. Celebrities, they were friends with them. They had a billion empire, and they still do, I guess, a billion empire, a multi-billion empire. That is the main reason why there's like, what really happened and why did it really happen? We're going to get started with a very simple explanation and really simple answer. It's just because social media has grown so much, and a lot of normies or ordinary people, they have opinion, and of course they're going to have some tea, especially if they face their favorite celebrity and then they try to interact with this person. Of course they're going to make their opinion and probably share this over their social media. That is the main reason why a tiny drama, a tiny tea might become a viral moment, and people are just going to probably just like unsubscribe. And when companies and a lot of, I guess, corporations see this massive backlash, or when like lots of people are unsubscribing, they will certainly take this on the account and see that, well, people are not probably going to buy a movie with this person, or probably not going to buy some new songs with this person just because they're cringe and undesirable. That is the reason why it might be a really big problem for celebrity to ruin their image, and not bad PR is good PR in 21st century. But we're going to move to this topic a little bit later, because you can tell that for James Charles, bad PR works every single time, but we're later on that. So if you watched one of my previous podcasts, you know that I filmed something about like people that would fix your problems if you have any problems. And it worked for a long period of time, especially Hollywood of like 20th century. But in 21st century, that is a huge problem, because with, again, social media, it's so much harder to keep your secrets. If you're a billionaire or probably a politician, that is one thing, because it's a little bit more easier. People are not following you as much as celebrities and actors and singers, and they're not really interested in you, especially if you're a billionaire. Yeah, you're listed in Forbes magazine, but who really cares about your private life? Most of the time, if you don't give a glimpse of your private life through social media, no one really gonna care, or probably not as much as people are gonna care about some singers or their cult figures that they're following. That is the main reason why we're going to start. What was the main mistake of these people in particular? Because they've been discussed through social media for a couple like years, and we don't really see them anymore. And why these celebrities are not hyping right now, though, like, I don't know, James Charles and any other TikTokers that had shady, I guess, situations and similar situations, they're thriving. What is the difference between the situations? Okay, let's get started with very, very simple example of Ellen DeGeneres. Ellen DeGeneres, she was always presenting herself as this kind philanthrope who was taking care of people and taking care of her audience. But if we actually gonna look through a microscope over the situation, she never actually gifted her own money. In case, like, I don't really know if she did herself, but most of the time it was sponsored, I guess, donation from any other company or any other business owner. And every single time was presented like Ellen herself was doing this donation, but it wasn't. The main idea here was that Ellen DeGeneres show, it was mainly targeted to get audience and presence, and people would favor her and people would really love her. But at the same time, it was massive and so popular that a lot of companies, they just wanted to get in her show to have a glimpse of it and to be that, knight in shining armor, to make sure that people are just gonna buy some products from this company because they help others in need. That was it. But then people started speaking out, and I don't know if her employers were to sign NDA contracts, but from what I've heard, she was horrible to her own employees and especially to celebrities. She loved scaring people. She loved making them cringe. She loved making feel uncomfortable. That was the main reason why I didn't really like Ellen DeGeneres and her show. Sometimes, not always, but sometimes I felt like you shouldn't actually get people through this very traumatizing experience. And she tried to pick these traumas and just make people I don't know, hate the situation or probably feel uncomfortable. And when this was piling over and over again, especially comments about someone's manicure, she was commenting on some girl having bad manicure, and she was a waitress. I mean, why do you actually care? I mean, you actually care maybe, but at the same time, it's so rude to say that out loud. It's just not your job. It's the job of a manager to say something like, you should take care of your manicure because you're working with people. Because I do know that is a thing in service, because my mom and my dad, they came from service, and my dad, he used to be a waiter, and my mom, she used to be a cashier. And, managers, they do talk to their employees to make their to get their look more, not even appealable, but just, presentable. That was the main reason why a lot of people just fell in love with Ellen DeGeneres pretty quickly for being this generous at the expense of some companies. But at the same time, they just like fell out of this loop where she was kind and generous to others when they realized how many people she literally offended, and her jokes were not always appropriate. Then we're going to J-Lo. She is probably not going to make the top of this list because J-Lo, she was not ever kind or relatable ever. Ever since she was popular for doing this role as Selena, if I'm not mistaken, she was nasty to other celebrities and commenting like she's not a great actress, I'm so much better. And I guess it just Leo, yeah, it was Leo speaking from her lips. I mean, Leo as an astrological sign, because she's a Leo, as well as Meghan Markle. We do actually have pretty much a lot of Leos in the industry, but they not act in the same way as J-Lo. And not so long ago, probably like maybe 2 years ago, when this whole situation with Blake Lively started, month or 2 months prior, she had a huge scandal where people were accusing J-Lo and being rude, and especially her team was really rude. That was the main reason why I guess that is she had her viral moment, but in a bad way. At first, everyone were really in love with J-Lo because they knew she was great. I mean, she looks great for a 53 or 4-year-old. Her body is crazy. I mean, it's really toned, and she works a lot in gym, but her projects, they were not relatable at all. And most of her projects were about her being that hard worker person, and the others being like, when people say no, she didn't want to hear a no from them. And now she's famous for like divorcing Ben Affleck. But my theory that this relationship, she was always mentioning in newspapers like, oh my God, I was so in love with Ben Affleck, and then he left me for Jennifer Gardner. I mean, that was just a pride moment that someone left her for another woman. It wasn't about her just like living in the shadow of this woman. It was more like someone just he left me for other women. That was a pride moment from the start, I guess. And when she got Ben Affleck, she was like, okay, he's an alcoholic, and everyone knows that, and she's not into alcohol at all. And then she's like, okay, we're gonna get married, and probably he's gonna quit. And she was over controlling. Everyone laughed about that. And now everyone is discussing J-Lo being extremely open in sexual way that it looks cringe most of the time. And even I guess Ben Affleck mentioned something like she should probably tone herself down a little bit. So that is another point that maybe for such a long period of time, we neglected the fact that a lot of magazines, with her interviews, they mentioned that she wasn't even kind to her own actress or like colleagues, let's say. But when people started saying some stuff like she was rude to them, straight from, I guess, the point of, being an ordinary person, that went viral, and she was lucky to have Blake Lively in the news later that month, I guess, because Blake Lively, oh my God, you know the story. I highlighted the story numerous times on my channel because I still do not get the fact how she hired someone like Fixers, I don't know who worked for her, and they still were not able to recognize the fact that she just have to shut up and that just like, pay some money, live Justin Baldoni, and just live the entire situation. She wants this revenge. She wants to show everyone that like someone ruined my reputation. You ruin your reputation by yourself. And that is the main reason why we saw a couple of, I guess, articles about Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively and having this plantation wedding, as well as some shady business that they had for some period of time. But all the time, they just managed to escape these rumors because they just paid some donations and they were pretty generous. And that was it for them. That they just like, didn't really bother themselves with anything else. And they probably hired some fixers to save their image. But when she got herself in this entire project, and maybe she didn't expect that Justin Baldoni would record every single scene to make sure that no one is gonna blame him later for SH or DV or whatever, he was so right. Or I guess someone hinted him to do this way. That was the main reason why I guess Blake Lively screwed up that much. And the problem here was that everyone thought the couple, Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively, they were super relatable. That's why everyone loved them and their jokes. But then everyone, when TikTok TikTok started spreading these rumors, showing some really old interviews and showing that they were not even related ever. That was a very curated image that people, saw what Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds wanted you to see in their PR company. And now finally, thanks to Justin Baldoni, we were able to see the real faces. This abruptly, like a lot of Blake Lively's fans, they're probably millennials and maybe some of Gen Z. I'm not really sure. And maybe a little bit of Gen X, but not boomers. I don't really think boomers were or are related to this topic. That is the main reason why we're not actually here for excuses. We're not here for their explanation or maybe their theory. We're here to see the truth, and we're not excusable in some ways. That is the main reason why I would say we're going to James Corden, who had a lot of history, not with his companies in Great Britain where he was fired from his previous job because he was super rude and I guess he messed up entirely. That's why he flew to United States and he started over from scratch. And people really liked him. He was relatable. Again, all this stuff except for I guess J-Lo, that all of them were relatable and they were spreading this kindness in a sense, in a way, or to be the best buddy for you is Ryan Reynolds with his jokes. That was the main reason why people just love that. And by the way, I completely forgot to mention that Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively, they were nobody. That is so weird that they were no ones up until Deadpool. I mean, he actually performed in some of the movies, but it wasn't that massive and successful. So when they had become, I guess, this great couple, they forgot that they lost their identity in a way, or they just got so much power that they didn't really care about other people. They just didn't expect that they couldn't get away with anything that they would have probably done to others. And someone like Justin Baldoni would go against them. Okay, so let's talk again about James Corden. He was accused in stealing other comedians' jokes. He was accused of being rude, especially when he went to a restaurant, Balthazar restaurant, where the owner was Keith McNally, if I'm mistaken, Keith McNally. I really love that Keith McNally, he mentioned in his social media that James Corden was extremely rude to his waiters and his employees in general, and that is the reason why he banned him from his restaurants. I really love this move because finally someone stood up for his workers, and that was very important to show that even if you're a celebrity, you don't really have any right to talk normal person, like normies, the way you did, with an attitude. I mean, yeah, you're famous and yeah, you might actually earn a lot of money, but at the same time, that's your job. That is your job, to show your face, to crack a joke from time to time and be done with this. There's so many other people out there who are doing the same job and who's providing their services. And this is not okay to tarnish the reputation of a person, to tarnish a regular person or any other person. You have to respect every single person from any other industry if they're not being rude to you, especially. And of course, a lot of people started noticing this weird behavior and patterns that Corden wasn't that great and this funny guy any longer, because he actually participated in so many weird, I guess, activities, especially his show where he made the celebrities to eat some food that he didn't find appealing. Though I know a cow tongue, it actually is a delicacy in many countries, and especially I guess in Russia, if you have warm cow's tongue, it's actually a delicacy and it's pretty expensive, not even in Russia but in other Asian countries, or not even Asian but like in other countries. So when you present this type of food as ugly, nasty food that is disgusting, in a way, you're actually making sure that you're kind of offending some culture and cuisine of other country. If I'm not mistaken, in Italy, in France, a lot of cuisine contain this type of products, and in Russia as well. And in I don't really know about Asia, because I know Asians are not huge fan of a lot of meat. They're in belly and pork most of the time, but because it's pretty expensive to have beef. But in the way, it's really common dish to have the cow's tongue or some other parts of, I don't know, like animal, whatever. That was the main reason why people just like started disappointing in a lot of the celebrities. And of course, I have a cherry on top because we're going to talk about Meghan Markle, who is a princess in a way. She's not even a princess. She's a duchess. And I'm not even sure, was she stripped of the title, or maybe she wasn't. If I'm mistaken, she was stripped of the title. I don't remember she could have any access to this type of title any longer. And of course, people loved Meghan Markle at first, and they thought that this kind of marriage would solve a lot of issues and probably bring United States and Great Britain closer, especially for the crown to allow this type of marriage. Because Meghan Markle, she's not from a very rich and kind of prestigious family. She's from United States. She's not from Great Britain, and she is black. That is the main reason why people thought that's going to work. And especially Meghan Markle was presenting herself being philanthropist, as well as being kind and being this, girl that cares about you. And especially a lot of footage where she was a kid, where she wrote a message about some, I don't know, sufferings. I don't even remember the record of Meghan Markle, but at the same time, I know that she tried to portray herself as this kind and very touching person. And then later we realized that at first she didn't come along with Crown, and everyone were blaming Crown, blaming Queen and the entire family, that they made Meghan Markle feel off. But then bits after bits, we realized that Meghan actually was pretty demanding. She was rude to employees, that Queen even had to interfere in this conversation where she had to say to Meghan that it's not okay to talk to employees this way. So then we had situations where Meghan expected to get some profit from her Instagram accounts or social media accounts, but she was not allowed because the crown was paying for everything, for their house, for service. And, if you see this from my personal point of view, it's just weird. You have everything on silver platter in the way that you don't really have to pay for anything. Like, really, crown is paying for everything. I guess it's not a big deal if you give your social media and they're earning from this to make sure that they can keep up with your style. You're kind of working for the crown. And she didn't actually get to the technicalities, I guess, where she saw that Harry was in love with her. She thought like, oh my God, I'm going to be the next princess. And it's like really beautiful, glittery idea, dreams, I guess, that every single girl had in their childhood. But if in reality, you are not allowed to do a lot of things. You have to have a dress code. You have to be at so many different events, and you have to be respectful most of the time. So the first thing when she hated all of it, the first thing she did, she went to United States and she started literally shitting the crown, which was not probably wise. And when they tarnished all the relationship they had with the brother, like Harry's brother, William, and the crown itself, I mean, you made everyone get through every dirty laundry that you actually put out there. And the weird and cringe, I guess, podcast we saw with Jamie Kermalima, as well as, do you remember the video where she was filming herself cooking and whatever, and she talked to Mindy Kaling, and Mindy was like, okay, Meghan, and Meghan was like, oh, it's so funny that you keep asking or telling like Meghan, you try to be relatable, but then you correct people when they call you Meghan because you are a Duchess of Great Britain. That is the main reason why, I guess, people, they realized that Meghan was a spoiled kind of child that wanted to have attention, but she didn't want to actually do a real job of a princess or a duchess. And I would say the worst part from my point of view from this podcast with Jamie was when she was like, oh my God, I did not expect my kids and my husband to write me a letter. First and foremost, if I'm mistaken, her kids, they don't even know how to write, but I'm not really sure. And second of all, I mean, she's just seen them at home. So why are they writing a letter to you right now? To cry on camera and this act with no makeup? I mean, what is the point of it? What was the real point of this podcast to be with no makeup on? I mean, like, I respect that, but you do actually wear makeup. It was just like an act of like, let me be relatable again. But people actually see through you with or without makeup. It doesn't really matter. And of course, TikTok, YouTube, it made sense when people started talking about her, because a lot of the platforms, and especially a lot of channels that are discussing news, they're super powerful. And we can't deny this any longer, because a lot of magazines, they have to refer to these YouTubers and they have to mention them in their articles, because they know that, for example, Candace Owens and Andy Signor, if I'm mistaken, from Popcorn Planet, they are pretty powerful, and they do have a lot of subscribers that are going to follow, they're going to leave comments, and they're going to see that people are not really happy with what is going on. And now we're finally going back to the part where I was talking about James Charles, and with all his behavior that is going on, he's actually thriving, and he's gaining more subscribers, he's gaining more views, which I honestly don't really understand. I feel like with the story with minors, they should have actually teach him a lesson, but he's pretty dumb at this point in this area, because he gets himself in more and more drama with people that have struggles, and especially blind people that needed those like yellow bumps, as well as like, I was I was shocked. I mean, he's 25 or something, and he still doesn't know what was the purpose of this yellow bumps. And from my point of view, like if I don't know anything and not to be a silly person, I try to Google this first, and then maybe I would film the entire video complaining about something. I mean, like his words, they're always coming from his mouth faster than his research, I guess. But all of it is just my personal opinion. Everything that I say in my podcast, it's my personal opinion. I'm not saying this is the only way around. So it's just for entertaining purposes, guys, only. What I'm saying here is like, still, why is he thriving and these celebrities are not? Because these celebrities, most of them are TV personas, and most of them are over 30 plus, maybe 35, even 40 years old. So we can tell that maybe Ryan Reynolds, he's still gonna be okay because a lot of Gen Z and Alpha, they watch Deadpool, they watch Marvel movies, but still, I feel like we're a little bit fed up of the stories, and maybe they're not interesting any longer, and maybe that is the main reason why Marvel is struggling in some of the movies. But Deadpool was really, really successful, though I feel like the jokes were dumb. I'm sorry, guys, if you're offended. But I do feel like most of those jokes were so sexually oriented and they were dumb. That is the main reason why I didn't really like it. I would say that a lot of the audience that is watching this TV with Ellen DeGeneres, for example, and Blake Lively, James Corden, whatever, they're primarily over YouTube and primarily watching this through TV. And I would say that the audience is probably like 30 plus, 35 plus. That is the main reason why millennials and the Generation X, they're not actually okay with being rude, and they're not okay when people are rude to the rest of the world. That's why there's such a massive backlash. And for James Charles, and I guess TikTok in general, you know that there's still a difference in algorithm, that if you're really messed up over YouTube is probably going to ban you, or they're still going to see that you're not loved and appreciated, and they're not going to push your videos through. Where TikTok algorithm is trained on just going viral, and it doesn't really matter if it's a good point or bad point. They're just trained to show that people are interested and investigated, and who cares if this is a negative feedback? If people are interested and investigated, it brings views, it brings money, and no one really cares. That is a huge difference. I'd say that is the main reason why people like Blake Lively and whatever, they get canceled, because the audience is different, the age range is different. Where when we see maybe even early Gen Z and maybe Alpha, seeing them in reality, we know they don't really care. They love drama, they love the hype, they love some weird shit, because most of them are kids and they feel like it's okay. It's okay to have this weird challenges, it's okay to have weird stuff going on, and they see that the more shit you do, the more likes and I guess subscriptions and money it brings to you. That's why they think that it's okay, and morals are not so important from their point of view if it brings them fame and money. And sometimes they just don't know when they cross the line. And that's scary. I know it's scary, but that is probably the main idea, the main reason why the celebrities are not getting out of the story, because fixers are not going to help here. It's too massive. They can't control social media. Maybe they're going to have a little bit different PR as Demi Lovato, and she had a scandal a year ago or something, where she was talking about small business and whatever. And then she rebranded and made fun of herself. And that's why it brought more attention to this situation and why she went viral for doing this. This is just a little bit different perspective. Maybe if Blake Lively backed up a little bit, in did it a little bit different way. I mean, it's still weird, because some celebrities or some companies, they're not apologizing because it's just a way for Gen Z or Alpha to see you as weak. And that is the main reason why they're not doing this. And maybe Blake Lively thinks that I'm not going to apologize because they're going to see me weak. No, it's a little bit different kind of story. You can't blame person for SH. You have to take accountability for those actions. And your fans are not Gen Z or Alpha. Your fans are millennials and Gen X, whatever. So yeah, guys, this is my point of view why this happened, because they were not only unrelatable, but the main idea that they were nasty. They had this image. If they had this image from the beginning, they're nasty people, and probably like Gordon Ramsay. You know he's gonna say shit about you. You know that he's gonna scream at you. No one really expects anything beside the screams from Gordon Ramsay. But when you portray yourself as this, philanthropist, and you portray yourself being kind and generous, whatever, and then people see otherwise, they're gonna have questions, and they're probably gonna unsubscribe and hate you forever. Okay, guys, that is pretty much it for today's podcast. That's fine with me. If you have any questions, you can ask me through my mail. It's going to be 100% anonymous. That's fine with me. Podcast, gmail.com. And we're going to talk about that in my future episodes. I love you all so much, and I'm going to see you next time. Let me know, by the way, in the comments, what do you think about this? Is it a real reason why they're losing this game, or it's something else that I missed? Maybe you've noticed that. I will be pleased to have a discussion in the comments or even talk about that in the future episodes. Love you all so much. Bye bye.